Right, today I thought I'd start my journey up the garden to show you our very old wildlife garden. I think the most notable thing about it is how untidy it is. Once October comes, I stop touching my garden. I gather a few leaves up off the ground on the lawn, but that's it. The rest is left to decompose itself, fertilise the garden, and obviously insects hide underneath them, and the blackbirds love all those leaves to hunt under. The first part is a Victorian house. I think I might have mentioned it's a Victorian house. It's well over 120 years old, so it's a long, narrow garden. It did originally have this brick wall running the length of the garden on both sides, but now there's a small part of the wall just on this opposite the kitchen, which is on our right, and then it becomes a link chain fence that was put up by our previous neighbour who's passed away now, which is great because we get the easterly light through. That's my cat. Come on, in you go. She might want to play in the garden while I'm out. She's got her bells on, you might hear her dingling. So yeah, it's a long narrow garden, and originally it was a small chain link fence on the right too, which was only about 2 foot high and lots of sunshine. But our new neighbour that moved in decided they wanted a 6-foot panel fence put up, so it changed the aspect of the garden quite suddenly. From being an openly sunny garden, it became quite a shady garden. So all my plants are in the process of being changed because they were always in full sun and now they're in a lot of shade, and along the border they're in shade most of the day. But I'm in the process of sorting that, so we'll have a stroll up the garden. This is a little raised bed here. I've got pots on it at the moment, but I grow my tomatoes there each year. So this is a very sunny aspect of the garden. Honeysuckle. But if you look, I haven't cut anything back from the pots at all. I just leave them. I'll cut everything back that needs cutting back in March. Lobelia's still looking healthy considering how cold it's been of late. But that goes to show how things are changing around us with climate change, I think. Water butt, of course. Little bird bath there. We've got a little robin that comes regularly and likes to have his evening bath in there, and the cat also likes to use his drinking source. It's a very untidy area at the moment, but this is where I do a lot of my bedding, pottering. It's an extension to the shed. I potter here, the coal frame's there. I'm going to be putting in the sweet peas shortly. I'll be seeding those and pottering them in the coal frame to keep them sorted. On the wall, gets a lot of sun in the summer, so lots of those birdhouses being had boxes, which we're not happy with any longer. We know they're not suitable really, but they used them last year, so once they've emptied I might take those down. These ones are far more practical because you can actually unscrew them and take out the bee pods, the bees from there. So we're in the process of purchasing more of these style. Hopefully that's some broccoli growing there. A shed, which was also my little home of many of the things that I collect when I'm out on my walks: feathers, rocks, insects that die in the garden. I've got a collection of. We get fascinated by everything in the garden. Bones, just a menagerie of natural history stuff. really. The shed is invaluable too. Sitting and watching the birds actually. And then we enter the main part of the garden. Sorry about the sunlight. Here is the busiest part of the garden because it gets most of the sun now. As I say, this 6-foot panel fencing has stopped all the sun that used to come across the garden. It is south facing, so this aspect gets most of the sun all year round. So I tend to plant most of the sun loving plants along here. Lavender, Russian sage, a rose, this, I know these are a bit controversial, but it's in a pot, a rhododendron, which is very attractive to bees. So yeah, now you'll see how untidy it all is. This is the main border in the middle, but we get all the frogs tend to hibernate in here. If I lift plants up, it's quite dense matting of plants at the moment. There's a lot of oregano takes over, but the insects adore it. Spiders love to make nests in it, and as I say, the frogs hibernate underneath it, and because the slugs will hide under there, the frogs can have a feast when they need it. So that's the main border in the middle, and then I have a border that runs the whole length of the garden, full of lots of different kind of plants that are attractive. This is a Weigella, bees love it too. Another Weigella. Obviously Buddleia. We must have about 10 Buddleia plants. We have, this tree is it's got out my head, I'll tell you in a second. Red berries, native tree, a rowan, got it, rowan tree, there we go. And then I planted, this tree wasn't here when we moved in, there literally were 3 rose bushes in that border and an apple tree, that was it, and lots of dead uncut grass. We then have 3 very large silver birches and 1 enormous cherry tree, which is very valuable to bees in the spring. It buzzes with bees. Another mixed border. In the lawn there's lots of, because originally it was sunny, I wanted to have a meadow, but I can't now due to the shade, so I do encourage like cowslip and other bulbs to come up in the lawn. Early spring irises, crocuses. I've brought some snowdrops, I'm going to plant those in there too. Lots of ivy. I find ivy is very essential in a wildlife garden. I've got bird boxes in lots of places. We have bat boxes. We've been having bats around the garden the last couple of years, so we put bat boxes up in a couple of the trees. We're surrounded by very mature ash trees. That's the biggest one there. They provide a lot of food for birds. Even the goldfinches will eat the keys on the ash tree. So, considering it's so cold, it looks quite lush in this area. The plants are still looking untouched by the cold weather. I don't cut back. This is lavender, and I don't cut it back because the goldfinches love the seed heads, so I'll cut it back later in the year. I'll cut that back in March probably. So as you can see, they've been stripped clean of their seeds. The back needs a bit of a clean, I think. It's been frozen. Again, this gets a lot of sun, this because we've passed the trees now, the main trees now in the garden, and this area here, it gets a lot of sunlight. So we tend to sit up here in the summer, a couple of benches there, and enjoy the warmth of the sun. So this gets more flowers here than the rest of the garden. My pond, it's not the greatest pond. It's empty at the moment. I did take a lot of plants out in October because it had got so dense. It was choked by a lily, which I've put a little bit back in. I'm hoping to control that lily. I do need to get a pot for it, but I haven't got a pot at the moment. There's a piece of wood in there. Hopefully, there are certain dragonflies that like to lay their eggs on wet wood, so I'll leave a piece of wood in. Little branch for you to sunbathe on. It tends to be a haven to frogs and hoverflies, but yeah, it's a great attraction for insects. It just does have shallow sides, but not a beach bit. Oh, I just saw the frog pop out then. You may have caught it on the video. I just saw its leg come out from behind a stone. It doesn't have a beach area, which I didn't know about at the time when I built this. I don't know how many years ago. I just knew we needed a pond. It's been in 20 years at least. So it was a case of just digging a hole and lining it really. So it's not the greatest pond, and I would like to change it, but this area here, which looks like nothing, it's matted, we do have ground nesting bees. So I daren't dig up. They nest all around the edge of the pond. They nest there. They nest in this area here. So I'm not able to really extend it. I don't want to kill something just to extend the pond really. It'd be great to extend it. I'm not going to damage what is there. And they're unusual bees. They're not a common bee, so we do want to actually encourage those to keep coming. In fact, I need to cut the grass because they seem to like it more a little bit bare than it is at the moment, so I can keep the grass a bit short there. Quite odd. This is our very old apple tree, gnarled and old, but still produces beautiful apples and obviously a great blossom in May. So that's staying till it falls over. It is leaning at quite a jaunty angle. So yeah, and then my battery's getting a bit low. I'm going to quickly show you the top of the garden. This is a wilderness here. I've got log piles and composting and lots of wilderness here. Then you can see our neighbour's garden just over there where the pile of bricks are, and they tend to use the top of their garden as a giant dumping ground basically, sadly. Lots of old bikes and bits of metal here, there and everywhere. They're not interested in gardening at all, so it does become a bit of an eyesore. But as it's untouched and not loved, the foxes love it because they can use it as a den and sit quietly in the gardens without being disturbed. So there's my garden in January. So I hope you enjoyed the little tour. My next tour will probably be the first week of February. We'll see what's coming up. There are some bulbs coming up, I've noticed already, and I actually noticed the Christmas lantern bulbs and plant is just pushing through some flowers, but there are signs of bulbs coming up here and there too. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the tour. I want you to see that a messy garden is not a dead garden. A messy garden is alive with lots of